Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Break Free from Your Monkey Mind. This is season 4, episode 4, and I'd like to introduce my co-host, Tony.
And good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. It could be any time at all as people listening in. So welcome, everybody. And how are you, Leanne?
I'm good, thank you. And tonight we've got Martin on, Martin Wright. So hello, Martin.
Hello, lovely to be here. So yeah, it's very weird, isn't it? But we'll go with it. So hello, podcast listeners.
It's podcast and vodcast, Martin, so they can see and listen because they have a choice. They can either, or did you not get told that part?
No, I would have shaved the beard. There would have been some more serious grooming. Maybe sorted out the background. But that's fine.
We like it all natural.
Yeah, that's it. Everything's natural. So it will be on all major platforms. They can listen to the podcast, but also if they want to go to YouTube, we do direct them there as well. Some people prefer to see it. I must admit, most people, it was just me, preferred to go the audio for some reason. But yeah, they might prefer that going now. Right,
don't say a word, visual now.
Don't say a word. All right, thank you. Okay, so as we said,
they do come on the visual now.
And first question, Martin's a really difficult one. Okay, tell us about yourself.
Okay, so I suppose I should start. My name is Reverend Martin Wright. So I am a Baptist minister based at Southend on Sea. I've been here about 10 months now. But what I really like is youth work and things like that. So we'll be talking about that soon. I'm also married to a lovely lady called Kim, and I have 3 children. I have a 17, a 14, and then we thought we'd be crazy and have another one, a 6-year-old. So it's a house full of ages of different places in life as well. Yeah.
And
excellent.
Because I always ask this of people is tell us about it, and it's amazing. They'll take about 30 seconds to a minute to tell us about themselves. If I ask you what you do now, they can talk all day. Yeah. So a bit more about you. What's your interests? What kind of things do you like to do out with being a reverend?
Okay, so I'm into running, so I'm trying to get better at that. I'm still quicker than my 17-year-old son, so that's given me the confidence. I'm 41 now, so it's just downhill from here. So I'm fighting that as much as I can. We enjoy camping. We've got 2 crazy cats that come and attack us or come for attention. We used to be dog people, but unfortunately they passed away, and now we've become cat people, which is a bit different, really. Not as many walks, which we're missing. What else am I into? I like coffee, so the stronger the better, and red wine as well. I think that's enough.
Oh, I'm going to say me and Martin are going to go on well. I've got 2 cats. I love strong black coffee and I like red wine. So there we go.
Friend for life there.
Martin,
you're the new co-host. Congratulations.
And so it's good finding out about. When Leanne first spoke to myself coming on, what really interested was the fact you just mentioned that you've got a passion for youth working. So what exactly is it that you do with youth work?
Okay, so it has changed slightly. So I've been in youth work for 15, 16 years in various different contexts, and I've done it in different places. So I've been in Leicestershire, in the Midlands, I've been in South London, and I'm doing youth work here as well as leading a church. But various different contexts. So we've done detached youth work, where we go on the street and just chat with young people, engaging where they are. We've ran open youth clubs where we just have conversations and it's a safe place for people to be. We've done more structured Christian youth clubs with kind of games and teaching and things like that. School mentoring. Working with young people that were on the edge of exclusion, hopefully trying to prevent that, and just giving them a space to discover and figure out how to work in schools. Also did quite a lot of, I'd say, mentoring, coaching with a few young people from various different churches and from schools as well, but outside in coffee shops and things like that. A little bit of county lines work as well. So a couple of young people who got involved in gangs, so sort of helping them navigate their way back out. I must say, yeah, one successfully, one not so successful, and just lots of different things like that. So it's a very varied job, but always meeting young people where they are and encouraging and directing and supporting them.
So can I ask, Martin, what made you get into doing youth work?
I think I'm quite immature for my age. So when I got into it, I was sort of drawn to the games, to just chatting with them and things like that. But I think there's an element of that. I'm quite a compassionate guy. So do you know when you can just notice somebody's not having a good day or something like that? I do tend to be quite aware of those things. So that works well when in a room full of young people where it might go well or not. And I don't know. I suppose the Christian kind of term is I just have a heart for young people. I just want them to achieve their best. And yeah, the more I do it, the more, I mean, I suppose it's like parenthood. You invest so much into a young person, you don't really see the benefits because they move on their life, which they should. I'm there for a short period of time with any kind of education person. But yeah, just seeing these growths, these tiny little steps forward into becoming, yeah, I forgot the term, a fully achieving adult, I suppose, a functional adult in today's society, something around that.
So you mentioned that you've been in different areas,
Yeah.
so you're doing youth work. Have you noticed a change in like the pattern of the areas that you're in? Are some more needed for youth work than others, or is it kind of across the board?
I think so. If we're talking about wealth, I think there is a slight difference. Well, there's evidence that those that are struggling more financially tend to struggle more with their mental health because there's more things to be worried about effectively. But saying that, I have met with young people, one young person who has never been on holiday and another young person who goes skiing twice a year. And actually, once you speak with them and sort of get to where they are, you realize that actually some of these reasons for poor health, poor mental health, poor well-being are the same, really. I would say going between the Midlands to London, there's obviously a different in pace of life. So I think that probably we'd call that anxiety, a kind of high functioning kind of within the M25. The pace is so much quicker. The idea of relaxing or stopping or just sitting and doing nothing doesn't really exist that much around there. Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
And what are you've been doing this for 15 years, you've been involved with this. Over that period of time, have the issues changed that kids actually go through over the period?
I don't think so, no. I think a lot of young people are trying to discover who they are. So they're built in a way where from 11 till 12, they're trying to find their character, if you like, putting on different masks in different environments to figure out who they are and where they belong. I think we can talk, we can say that actually sexuality, identity has become more on the radar in probably the last 5 years. But I think it's probably a case of more people are speaking about it rather than it's actually increased. I would say that actually this has always been the case, and maybe those people that had those feelings or those would identify in a different way weren't able to, so just had to stay within society's norm, really. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think social media has given an avenue for people to have more of these conversations, but to also understand more about how they're feeling. because you can find more information there. But there was, right, but 15 years ago, if you look at that, there wasn't a place of facilities for people to do things like that.
No,
The other thing as well, because you mentioned a bit, which is a really good point, that even someone, you said that it doesn't have the holiday, and someone who's been in skiing holidays, everything. Kids are kids, no matter if they've got money or they've not, they go through the same things, the same hormone changes, the same feelings, the same searching for themselves. So that's a really good point. And a lot of people don't realise that it doesn't matter where you come from. It just means that maybe in a different spectrum, you can look as though from the outside, you can understand, well, why a certain person's mental health maybe not as good, but you don't always understand the other one because you think they've got everything. But what that point shows us, we never know what's behind that. You never know what else they've gone through. You can only see a facade. And I love that way you put it, the masks. They do it, we call it psychological masks. They wear a mask for different things, and you cannot see by that. And one thing that's so prominent is some kids could be in smiling all day, but that doesn't mean they're not hiding something behind that. They're doing that because they feel as though they have to, because they don't want people to understand what they're throwing, because they don't get it. And that brings a good point in for you, is that is understanding your position as a youth worker, but you're also a reverend. Does that conflict in any ways when you're actually working with youth, having both sides of that?
I don't think so. I think sometimes I was actually speaking to a teacher who does RE at primary school, and she said that actually when they discuss beliefs, ethics, and things like that, they actually discover more from the children because it's opening up a conversation. So when you say, what is love? They're able to verbalize that. Whereas if you're doing a maths lesson, it doesn't really work. And when we talk about what's right and what's wrong, there almost needs to be something solid that we can discuss around, that people can reflect against. So do not kill. Okay, well, is that part of your belief system? Why not? What does that look like? How does that work? So it's almost giving them scenarios of how to work with. I think if we were to take God out of our kind of little God slots that we do, where we talk about stories of being a good Samaritan and things like that, there's a way for a young person to reflect themselves in it, to hear a different perspective, or one that they even support. And I think that's important. I think there's also, if we were to bring God back into it, we're very much a secular society now, yet there seems to be this underlying feeling that there is something more. And whether that's Christianity or whatever, obviously I know what I believe, but I'm not sort of pushing that. But questioning people beyond what they know and what they can see is helpful for young people to function and to be creative. They would say Christianity is dying, but spirituality is growing. So there's this kind of thing that's happening in society. So I think it sort of floats like that. I think as Christians, we would say we love everybody, we welcome everybody, and we want them to have the best life. And if there's, so Christian faith is in a place where they're talking about different subjects ranging within the LGBTQ plus. I think there's a few more letters, but I'm sorry. And they're discussing it and figuring how that sits within the faith. And there's a wide spectrum of different Christian groups that have different perspectives on that, the same as they have throughout the years. So I just think it creates an environment where they're able to share what they think. And then once they're able to share what they think, they can share what they feel or believe or those kind of things. Yeah.
So can I ask a question? When you do your youth work on the streets, do you explain to the youth, the children, when you see them, that you are a minister? Or do you leave that bit out because some children kind of feel like they don't want to be dragged into a church environment and all that side of things? Or do you kind of go in there and say, I'm just here to help, talk to you, listen to you, and go from there? I mean, when I was growing up, I was very into my religious education. I loved it. I was really good at it at school. So I really enjoyed doing that. But I know my brother he would have been like, no, you're not dragging me into that. You're not getting me into that cult. And that was his attitude. So what I want to know is, how do you approach children when it comes to introducing who you actually are and what you do?
I think because I'm a youth worker, I'm a minister, and I'm an adult, there's an element of power that I have in that space. So I would say, if I was doing detached work, I would say I'm a minister, but I'm not going to talk to you about God. Because actually, to do that, if I was walking the streets trying to talk to young people about God, that's me using my authority to push an agenda, and that's not youth work. So the groups that are Christian are blatantly Christian. So if somebody says, what groups do you run? I'll say, well, I'll run one on this day, but if you come, I'm going to talk about Jesus. You're more than welcome if you want to. So there's never a kind of, power and authority shouldn't be used in that way, as far as I see it, and it's not good youth work practice. Like I think we said earlier, a youth worker is a professional friend, and the only agenda is to help them to be the best person that they can be. So we have to be self-aware so we can help them grow and be effective in society. Yeah.
Brilliant. No, that's brilliant advice. And, you know, I think you're going to get more people come to you because they're going to feel that they can approach you more, as opposed to feel they're going to be dragged into something they don't want to be put into. So excellent.
Yeah. Actually, it was funny leading up to that question when you describing your brother's thoughts, and he said, I don't want to be involved in that cult. I've not had many people call like the church a cult before, so that's quite a new description of it.
My brother was, when we was at school, was very much didn't do his religious education, hated all that sort of thing. So to him it was like, you're going to brainwash me, it's a cult. That's the side of it. And I said, oh no, I'm really good at it. And if I went on any excursions or anything, I'm not coming. So I've dragged my mum and dad along. Yeah, I've got to do this for my coursework. He would be like, well, I'm not coming. You're not getting me involved in all that. So completely two different children from the same household, which was always a laugh in our house. I take my little boy to a playgroup, which is obviously where you are, Martin, at your church. So I do take him to the playgroup there. And it's, as I was trying to explain to Tony earlier, it's not like a church where you'd go in and think, okay, I'm going to be sat here, I've got to read hymns and everything else. It's so relaxed. Everyone just feels so welcome. And I think that's the nice thing. And when my son was baptized, had his child dedication, yourself who done it, all the guests were all imagining to turn up and thought, oh, here we go, got an hour of service of sitting here bored. They all come out going, wow, what a relaxed place to be. You know, it was so relaxed and chilled out, and they was not imagining that whatsoever. And I was like, oh no, they're really cool down there, they're a really nice bunch. So that's the kind of thing that I think more youngsters, if they realize that there's a place that they can go that isn't just going to be sat down doing your Sunday school stuff, it opens up more doors for people, definitely.
Yeah. What she didn't tell you, Tony, is I had to send her a text message saying, what are you wearing for the dedication? Because I was worried that they were all going to turn up all suited and booted.
Which we did.
I wear jeans and a shirt, and that's me pushing myself to the limit. So I was a bit concerned that I'd have to...
And yet we still did it. We all turned up, nice dresses, all suited up, and the boys all had ties on. And when they saw Martin turn up, they all went, and they come off, and they were like, oh, okay, we don't need ties. I was like, they went, where's the minister? I was like, that's him. So very chill.
Again, there's a reason behind that, because I mean the old style was suited and booted, look really polished, and I just see that as another factor of excluding people. So if we want to welcome everybody from every single culture, how does a person feel that could never dress in a suit, that can't afford to be all shiny? And I just think actually it's just a negative effect. It excludes people. It puts me in a different place from everybody else.
Not just that, it builds a barrier between you and them that you've got to break down before you can start getting that communication to build. Because you made a good thing earlier about the relationship. It's a rapport that you need right away. If they're going to trust you and respect you, if they've got that barrier, they find it difficult. I know for me growing up, that was one of the things. We had like 2 youth clubs near us. You'd one where anybody could just go and play pool, everyone was at. The other one had more music, and that which we loved, but you had to go to a chapel to do that. But what they didn't realise is that the priests were trying to change people's perception of the church then. Although they still were a dog collar, they were very laid back, very down to earth. And I think nowadays, I think your way on it already alleviates a lot of that issues for young ones going there, that they can feel they can talk to anybody because there's not the barrier they've got to break down. They're just going as they just see another person, maybe an older person, but that's all they see. As there's nothing else that's in between that. And I think that's something then that what you've said has been a great change, although maybe the issues have not had to change over the years, over the last 15 years, but the church and the way that people then can interact with the church has. Because one thing, guys, these sessions, the youth things that you do, they're open to anybody, or they only have to be from the Baptist church?
They're open to everybody. We did detached work over the summer, and that was just bumping into people. We have a Friday group, but that is it's got a Christian element to it, but it is open to anybody. And I suppose, so I want to sort of backtrack to why I'm still passionate about young people, because as a 41-year-old, people would go, well, you're too old for youth work, Martin. You need to move on. And
hang on, they didn't see you dressed up as an orange at Christmas, so
don't need to mention that.
Sorry, it's out there now.
But no, but the thing is, I look at the generation that we've got now of young people, and it's just so they're going to be the generation that will earn less than their parents, and the last time that happened was after the World War II.
Yeah.
So, and that's going to take resilience for young people, for adults to get through that, to not be pushing for this growth that we've all been told. I mean, when I was at school, the question of what I wanted to be when I was older was one that we sort of talk about, but it wasn't that big a deal. Now, it's all that they hear about, really. They need to aspire. They need to go to uni. So I'm even backtracking on the differences in 15 years, but I'm probably talking 30 years now. And there's so much pressure on young people. I've got some stats. So a Mind, and they did a report in 2021. 96% of the young people they spoke to said that their mental health has been affected by their schoolwork at some point. 56% of staff identified that young people didn't receive help correctly when they were when they realised they were self-harming. And just all these other kind of things where you just think, why is it not clicking? Why are young people still in a situation where it's not getting better, it's getting worse? And I hate exams, and I'll be honest, I didn't enjoy them. But if you were to plan when to test somebody, would it be the point once they're full of hormones, don't know who they are, and can't make a decision of what they have for breakfast? Would that be the ideal time to put them through tests? Because that's what we do at the minute, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and glad you said that, because as if you'd listen to the other podcast that I do, I get a real beam of bonnet about this one, and I go off on a real tangent with this, because I believe I work with a lot of students, and you're right, the younger ones, the ones 17, 18, they struggle more with the fact of the last couple of years at school didn't get preparation the way they normally would for going to university. Some of them missed the first year at university, when that's really the most important year for them, is the integration part of that type of work, integration with the communication with people from everywhere, not even your own area, and also understanding the gulf between high school and university, or academic life and academic work. And they've missed a lot of that, and they struggle. And people keep putting it down, oh, it's the exam stress. Well, two things with that. One, no, it's not. The exam stress only comes about because they've not studied properly or not got into a strategy how to study, and they're not taught that really. As a society, we teach our education system, if you look over the last 50 years, you're right, still teaches people how to pass an exam. So we teach them in primary school to pass any exam before they go to secondary. We used to call it IQ, when it was still the same, they get IQ tests, see where they're at. Then you go to secondary school, in the first year, you do all these tests to see what sets you're going to go in, or where we're going to put each person. So we're already establishing these blocks between different people, and saying, well, I'm not going to put you there because you're not as bright as this one. So we want to put these ones here and you go somewhere else. Then we get them ready for them to pass their exams now, the O levels are at, the exams that they do. So the GCSEs, they pass them. Then you're right, they go to college or university, or another apprenticeship or whatever, as people say, the way they talk about it. And we get them ready to pass an exam to go to them. And then we spend 4 years at university or more to pass an exam at the end of it. To go into working life, to go, what the hell have I just walked into? Because I don't know what I'm doing now. Because all I know how to do, give me an exam, I'll pass it. Ask me to do that work, I talk to him, I don't know what to do. And I've never understood why we've changed the curriculum for the content, but we've never ever looked at the fact is, how do we teach these kids life skills that they don't become the 40, 50-year-old people that I deal with every week now who need help? Because they never got taught that at school, and you're right. So we need to be looking as a society saying, okay, at primary, we need to get them ready for going to secondary. At secondary school, prepare them for what's happening. And you're right, not in exams, but how do you deal with what's going on internally as well as in your mind?
Yeah.
And that comes from schools, it comes from parents, it comes as a society and the church. If we get everybody together in each area and say to them, right, how do we improve this? How many kids will not go through what they go through, and how many of them self-harm without parents even knowing themselves? How many of them nowadays are very good at hiding where they do it? Used to be their arms. Now you see them doing it inside their ankles or on their legs, bits that cannot be seen. They do it so that even the parents don't know. So for you, good question, or if you get somebody that comes to you and you realise that, you spot it or you see them, how do you broach that as being a youth worker?
So I think the first thing I would do, I wouldn't bring it up. So I'd arrange to have a coffee with them. I'd give them opportunities to share, but only when they share. I think if I'm pointed out, they'll feel guilt. They'll exclude themselves. They'll move away. They'll hide. But if somebody was to come to me and they're self-harming, my first question is, what do you use? Is it clean? And do you do it safely? Because self-harm is it's not the cause, it's the effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
The cause is actually poor well-being, and the effect is self-harm, the same as drinking too much alcohol or smoking or taking drugs. They're the effect, not the cause. So we would talk about how to make sure that it's clean, and just put in some processes. So we've done that a couple of times. I've worked with a family when the parents found out, and then they worked with that. So we put in little things where they could indicate if it had happened, and just mood kind of things, and just various kind of things. But yeah, the first thing is to make sure that they don't feel guilty and that they feel understood in it, and then find them different ways of creating a different cause. Because if I'm honest, I go for a run because I may be a bit anxious or a bit full of energy, or I've just found a healthy way to process. Because when we talk about mental well-being, actually that's all of us. We all, to a certain extent, have to manage our well-being. It's whether we use healthy tools or unhealthy tools to keep it going. But yeah.
I suppose the thing I'm getting is, you mentioned that you're a parent. So you're a parent with a child that you don't know who's doing something like that. And obviously the worry is, if it escalates and nothing's done, it can lead, normally it's a prelude, or it can be a prelude to suicide. So if you've got someone in that situation, and it was one of your children, and they were in a youth centre or whatever, and that person notices that, would you want to know? Would you want them to tell you? Even though to maybe not to broach it with them, but find a way of bringing it up so they don't realise it's came. But would you want to know that yourself?
Okay. I would say the training that I've done said that self-harm isn't a prelude to suicide. I think they are two different kind of paths. So, because that's an issue, we look at self-harm and then we instantly jump to, oh no,
Yeah.
this is going to happen, and that's not the case at all. This is them finding endorphins for a short period of time to make them feel better before the guilt kicked in. But no, from my perspective, because I've done youth work, no. I think they need to process it themselves, and people.
I'm glad you said that, because I know it's a question I've been asked before, and it is, where does it come a point when the parents need to know something when you notice these things? But a lot of it, the children do that. It's a coping mechanism. James, you mentioned alcohol, drugs, whatever. And yeah, they could be doing it. And if you're making sure that it's clean out whatever they're doing and where they're doing it isn't going to cause any major harm, is that no better than sometimes it can seem weird to say that way, but then going on drugs or going and drink somewhere when they're out of control and they can't do it, at least this way, they can control that. It's just understanding why they do it. And the thing for them is never to asking them why, because it's if you're accusatory, if you do that, and just trying to bring up, I like the way you did that, just bring it in a conversation, but let them do it. You're guiding them towards it without actually making them tell you.
Yeah. And yeah, you can talk about well-being even when you know that it's happening, because it's linked to it, but you don't need to say, I'm aware of this. And that's part of building trust and things like that. There is an element where I'm a youth worker, so I'm restricted in what I know. I would work in the mental well-being area. If anything got too serious, we then redirect to other services, which, as you said, actually these services aren't where they should be at the minute, and they're a bit slow in processing. And then we journey with them in whatever way like that. But we need to, well, I need to, as a youth worker, realise my limitations and how long I'm with them for that journey before somebody else needs to step in and address it, really. Yeah.
Do you ever find that you get children that just become attached to you, use you as like an anchor, and you need to know that boundary of when, like you say, to move them on to somebody else?
Yeah, so triangulation, I think, is a theory. So they put you in the middle as a kind of, you hold this for me, and that definitely does happen. And that's not to say that's a bad thing in the short term, but there always needs to be, how do we get into this relationship, but also when's the end, and how do we work towards the end? And I suppose that's what you guys do, but I would do it more informally, because it is well, if I'm working with a young person from the age of 11 to 18, actually that's quite a spread, but actually how do we meet quite intensively for a long period of time, and then how do we draw that to the end, and then how do we stay in contact, and those kind of things. So yeah, it does happen, but there are obviously things that you can do and help them to work with. I suppose I've got a question for you guys, and this is something that I've sort of witnessed and see, but from my experience, when people do suffer in poor mental health, they tend to all gather together and support one another. And that's a really wonderful thing to do, because there's understanding and things like that. But then sometimes when that happens, it becomes the norm. So it's trying to, have you ever encountered that kind of space, really? I know you're supposed to be asking me questions, but I'll ask you one.
I have, purely through some of the Facebook groups that I follow for my condition, and you tend to find that people will all link together because misery loves company. So if somebody's saying, oh, I'm in a lot of pain, oh yes, so am I, oh, so am I, and it kind of becomes this big thing. I like to break away from that and process, like you said before, processing. It's all about processing. And if I get people come to me and they say, oh, you know, I'm suffering with this, oh, my friend suffers with it as well, and I will separate them from their friends and look at them as an individual and concentrate on them as an individual person. We'll deal with your friends after we've sorted you. So that's how I do. I mean, Tony, you may do it completely different, but I do find that the Facebook groups, a lot of them are Misery Loves Company, so they will all club together in that sense. And sometimes for me that just doesn't work.
I think majority of the time it doesn't work,
No.
because you're right. I think Margie, they get so comfortable themselves being in it that they don't see a way out anyway. They just see what they've got in it. Like I had one recently. You've got one who wanted all these things to do in their life, but they were sort of losing the vision that want to do with that, because all the friends around about them are now suffering the same as them. So you say, okay, they were talking about how they're really down about an exam results they got. And so your friends do really well, because you just think it's just them. They say, well, no, actually they didn't. You wonder why that would be. And they start to realise that if they want to get where they've got to go to, they can't just be with these people all the time, because look what happened. What were you like before you met all them? And they start looking back saying, actually, I was good at this, I was good at that. Now tell me the things you're good at. And all they can tell you are all the bad things that happen. And say, okay, forget them in a moment, you've done that. And I do a wee daft and I say, right, tell me 3 things about your favourite food. So they'll tell you about that. 3 things of a place you really want to go, or you've been before on a holiday. They'll tell you all these things. Tell me 3 things great about yourself. And they'll come up with one. Normally they stop after one. And you say to them, think what you just did. All these things are amazing, but you can't think anything good about yourself. And that's when they start to realise that there's an issue. Why is that? Because this is what other people tell me. So they don't hear it. And if you don't hear the good things all the time, how would you expect to change? If you're only hearing misery all the time, that's why you won't change. So it's change their perspective, but getting them to realise it rather than you. All you had is a guide. I tell people that's all I do is guide them. They have to come to it. But the moment they do, and you watch that look in their face when they realise, and it's amazing. And it's just, I can change, I can do this. And I do that with affirmations with them. Right, how are you going to do that? I can change, I'm going to change, I will change. And you just keep doing them, doing little things at a time. And they start to break away for those people then. And they don't feel as bad because they realise that that's what was holding them back. It's not themselves that's holding them back. It's because they get caught up in that culture that everybody's against us. And it seems more now prevalent because the top of the mental health issues. But I gave him, Martin said, I teach everybody the same thing, as everyone is on this planet has got mental health. Everyone is. How many has got on a Monday morning go, oh, where do I go to work? Oh, I've had enough. I can't face this week. That's your mental health getting off on one. The difference is some people need more help than others to deal with it. That's the only difference. There is nothing wrong with them. They're not broken, all these words that people use. It's just they need different help from what you do. So if I ask somebody to go, you said you're great running and your son can't catch you and running, that'd be great. But I said, right, you've now got to jump a hurdle at 6 feet high every 100 meters you go along. You'll be going, what? Right. But you get somebody else who's great at that, they'll be flying past you doing it because that's what they're good at. And that's what young people have to realise. I think a lot of themselves are now. We've all got things that we're good at and things we're not. It doesn't mean because someone's suffering with that they're any different. If someone's got a broken leg, you treat them that way because, all right, what do you need help with? If someone says, I've got a mental health issue, you've got, okay, and you leave them. Why do we treat them different when the mental health's the same thing as the physical health? They're both got to deal with it.
Yeah. Go on, Martin. No, go on, Martin.
Yeah, and I was thinking like a broken leg, you can see it, can't you? It was broken, now it's fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Mental health, it's so more difficult to measure. And I think that's probably why it's not invested in at schools as well. So we talk about exams. Like you could teach somebody about managing the mental health, about all this well-being stuff, but there's no way of measuring that success until they're 30, 40, 50, 60, all the way on. So the schools aren't able to invest in this because they can't show that it's made any difference.
I think as well, it's the whole being perfect, you know, and I think that is a lot of it. You know, when I was at school, there was people that were always studying because they had to pass their exams because they had to be perfect. What is perfect? You know, who's perfect? What is this word perfect that we try and all put ourselves under? And I've got a 3-year-old, and I if he does something wrong and he goes, oh, I've done that wrong, and he gets upset, I go, it's okay, don't worry, we can try again. How do you know that that wasn't good enough? And he goes, oh, okay. So I've never ever said to him, you've got to do that and it's got to be perfect. I don't understand that word perfect, and I wouldn't expect a child to understand that word perfect. And I wouldn't turn around to a child and say, you've got to be perfect, because can either of you answer what the word perfect is?
I've got a simple answer. If you get to perfect, where do you go? I'll tell everybody the same thing. If you ever get to perfect, where do you go? So why would you ever want to get somewhere you can never move on from?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me when people talk about that.
Perfect. That's the thing. It's like, everyone, I want to be perfect. Is perfect having a lot of money, being academically brilliant, being an Einstein, the best looking, because what one person thinks somebody else looks attractive, somebody else might think they're not. It's all individual perspective of everything. And this whole perfect, I found when I was growing up, you had to be the perfect dressed, you had to be the perfectly good at school, you had to be perfect at this, that, and the other. And if you wasn't, you were an outcast. That was then a lot of pressure, as well as exams, as well as everything else, to be this idea that somebody's created in their mind that they have to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is so within the culture and the subcultures. So a kind of example of that is, I'll use my daughter, she'll be fine. When we were in Croydon, it was kickers shoes, and a rucksack, and a big coat. So that's what she wore, that's what everybody wore, and that was perfection, wasn't it? Everybody's got those shoes because they're perfect. And then when she's come here, nobody wears kickers. They all wear those little slip-on black shoes. It's not a rucksack anymore, it's a handbag. And so she went to school thinking she was perfect. She fitted in brilliantly. And after the first day, she was like, Dad, my shoes have broken. I need some new shoes. We had to go and get the shoes that everybody else had. And then by the end of the week, we went to get a handbag because...
So that's the pressure. It's the pressure from her going to school and seeing what everyone else has got and feeling that she's got to do the same. So would you say that works in the same way as when you've worked on the streets with children that have ended up in gangs because they haven't fitted in and they're trying to find that place in their life to fit in? So they haven't been able to, afford that type of shoe or that bag or maybe that baseball cap, and they've found somewhere else where they can fit in and they've been drawn into that.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways. I think a gang is like a family. So those people that have felt a bit lonely have been welcomed into that space. They've been given gifts. They've been looked after. They've been taken places. And obviously this is all part of
the grooming side. Yeah.
So that happens. I think also money side, it's easy money as they see it. There is a bit of an image of this is how you look. So you could see somebody who goes to a private school in the week dressed the same as a gangster at the weekend, and that's because this is my culture, this is how I dress. So there is that kind of idealistic image of what, especially where I was actually. If you were to look at a gangster and look at, somebody in a gang, sorry, not a gangster, that paints with somebody with a custard pie gun. But there's this kind of influence from music and stuff like that. So I've lost the question, but they sort of fit into it, don't they?
Yeah, that perfect world. Yeah.
Again, back to that perfect. Right. So one last thing then before we finish. If you could change one thing in society now, Martin, that would make life easier for the young people that you deal with and youth culture, what would it be?
Oh.
Nothing like putting you on the spot or anything.
I was going to say that could be a long.
I'm going to go a bit Christian now, but I think just for young people to know that they are loved. I think that is, if every single young person knew that they were loved, and I'd say by God, by parents, by whoever, unconditionally, whatever you do, whatever happens, you are loved. I think that would solve a lot of issues, really. I think that's where they come from. Sorry to make it a bit churchy.
No, it's brilliant, actually, because we're going to see what Leanne thinks of it now, because she thought it was funny me asking you a question there, so she's got to answer it now. What would you change?
I would change the fact that I would allow children to know that they can come to people for help and advice, communicate, and know that that perfect image is just something that they are imagining in their world that they're in now, and to realise that there is no such thing as the perfect person, because everyone's got flaws, as we've all spoke about already this evening. Everyone's got mental health issues. So who is exactly perfect in this world? And if you was to ask a child, they may tell you their favourite pop star or a fashion icon, somebody that they see a lot in the media, that they see as an image and think, that's perfect, that's what I want to be. But if they was to find out about that person, their background, they'd all of a sudden go, oh no, I don't want to be like them. So what is this image? And that is one thing that I could change with youth, is I would say to them, there is no such thing as perfect. Now, Tony, I'm going to throw the question. I'm going to throw it straight to you now, Tony. Come on in.
Yeah, I think for me is to allow kids to know they've got options in life. It's not all about passing an exam. It's not all about going to school and going to university, college, apprenticeship, whatever it is. There is so much in this world out there that needs every one of us. Every child that comes through has got a place in this world. And I bet the bits back to both of these there. One, so they don't think that everything has to be perfectionism, because that's only one test. That's some person's interpretation of what perfectionism is. Being loved is something important as well, because whatever they decide to do, they're going to be loved for it. That's what they need to know, is that they've got these options. You never know how many of them that we don't nurture. That could be some of the greatest inventors or some of the greatest business owners out in the world, because they're told they're not that good at school because they can't pass an exam. Yet if they look at some of the most famous people who've done well in business, how many of them never done well at school? And they don't realise that, because they don't look at them as their role models. Look at Richard Branson's one of the best examples. He learned the most important lesson when he was young, said, and that's, even if you don't know what you want to go and do at a job or something, go for it anyway. You can learn when you get there. And he tells everybody gone for a job, because he didn't. And how many times has he failed? And what does he call it? All it is the same saying I've got now. I say every failure is a step in your way to success. So when a child gets something wrong, you said your 3-year-old does that wrong, you just say to him, that is great. Now you know that's not what you do. Well, we'll go see how you do it. So they learn right away that it's nothing bad to get things wrong. What they are learning is there's a place for you, and you will fit there eventually. They will find that place. And whether it's with God, without God, with perfectionism or not, everybody needs to find that. And that's what really what's so good about Martin does, and please keep it up. Especially the fact if you still think you've been looking through a child's eyes, because you said that you are like a big kid, maybe some ways like you've never really grown up. I said this to my wife actually, there's nothing more special than if we could get one afternoon, just one afternoon, and remember what it was like to look through a child's eyes. How much different would our life be if we could just do it every now and again, just sit for an afternoon and look through their eyes and not try and make them look through ours. That's the big difference I want it. It's letting kids do that, be children, and let them grow up being whatever they want.
Yeah.
So, on that note, thank you very much to Martin for coming along tonight. We really appreciate it, and great insight. So, thank you for that. Thank you for Leanne, as usual, being the co-host on here. And we'll see you all again next week. We've got another guest coming on next week, who's Les. I won't give much more information about her, but Les is actually works a lot with children. So she's coming to give us an investigation of maybe following up from Martin's thing, children who come from deprived areas. What kind of things that they can get, what choices they have in life, how can we help with that? So really looking forward to that as well. That should be a great one. It's there. So again, take care of yourself and your families, and thank you for joining tonight. And Leanne?
Yeah, thank you, Tony, and thank you, Martin, for coming on. Really appreciate it, and yeah, great insight into what you do. So keep it up, as Tony said. More children need people like you.
Okay, thank you. Bye, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.